Learning to grow your own food might not seem like something that's suited to an urban garden. It's the kind of thing you imagine from country produce fairs and people who are retired. But trust me, you can definitely grow what you want to eat in your balcony, and I know because I've done it. In fact, herbs were the first thing I ever started to grow, long before flowers or shrubs or anything more complicated. The other good thing about herbs is that they're actually really easy, and they're pretty cheap and easy to pick up too. Today I'm going to show you how you can get the herbs from your supermarket into your urban garden and what you need to do to make them thrive. The problem is when you buy these herbs is that they are packaged and sold to look great on the shelf. And frequently that means that lots and lots of plants have been put into a pot that's really only meant to accommodate a few of them at a time. Let's look at this basil, for instance. This is the kind of size of pot that I'd normally put 2 seedlings in. And here, there's probably about 15. But this is solvable and you can make it work on your balcony garden. Once you've put these plants into the right conditions, there's no reason why you can't keep them alive for at least a year, if not longer. Firstly, what I'm going to do is take this basil out of this pot and essentially put it into a larger space where all of them can thrive in their own room. Take the plant out of its plastic pot. What you can see here is the roots are all really tightly packed into the space where the plastic pot was. That's a surefire sign that it's time for it to move on and find a bigger home. And that rule kind of applies to all of your plants, indoor, outdoor. If this is going on, we call it root bound. It's easily solved. And in the case of this basil plant, I'm just going to rip this root ball into 4 separate chunks and put all of them up in a separate pot. Because supermarket plants are often really overwatered to keep them looking fresh, you won't need to do much watering when you get them home. In fact, that's pretty much the #1 way people kill their supermarket herbs. A combination of plants not having enough soil, food, and space, plus the fact that we overzealously water them the minute they get home, it always spells disaster. So, splitting these up into more manageable chunks means that each of these stems will get greater space. What we've got here are 2 healthy, happy little stalks with a good root system. And I'm going to plant them up into this container. Now this container will probably be a bit too big for just this plant. I'd normally put it in something like this. As you can see, it fits quite nicely. But the beauty of herbs is that some of them get together quite happily and all exist in the same pot, which if you've got an urban garden that's short on space, means more herbs, regardless of how much room you have. These terracotta pots are quite good for herbs because they make sure that they don't get too waterlogged. And generally speaking, while herbs like to be well watered, they don't like their roots to sit around and get too soggy. So this terracotta pot will make sure that doesn't happen. I'm going to put it into a bed of multi-purpose compost. This will come with the nutrients it needs to grow. And while I could fill the whole pot with these separate bits of basil, I'm going to take the opportunity to put another herb in with them. Thyme and basil are quite well mixed because they both like sunshine and they don't like too much water. They're both Mediterranean herbs, or ones that come from warm places, and that's a good way to work out what goes with what. You could also probably match rosemary into the mix, because she doesn't like getting her roots wet either, and she likes the sun. You can mix and match with your herb planter, just make sure that the ones that you put in enjoy similar conditions, and you're going to eat them. What I will say though is mint is a real thug. You don't really want to put him in with anything else. They've got quite a complex root system, which makes it perfectly designed to invade other plants' space. Generally, mint will send out runners all around the circle of your pot and then pop up when you're least expecting it. They'll totally take over the space of another herb. If I put it in with this, you'd just end up with loads of mint and not a lot else. So you're better off putting them in separate containers so they can go wild of their own free reign. Once you've planted your herbs up, you need to put them in a space where they'll enjoy the best conditions, and in most cases that's a lot of light. If you've got a shadier spot, I'd recommend trying parsley or mint, as both of these will put up with lower light levels. I tend to leave things like parsley and mint out all year, but you'll probably want to move basil and coriander inside when it gets colder to protect them and keep them running into the next spring when you can move them outside again. After a long winter, mint might get a little bit straggly like this. And this is when you essentially want to prune it back or chop off the manky bits, and that will encourage new life into your mint. Check out our lesson on pruning, deadheading and weeding for extra tips on this. But what you're basically wanting to do is get rid of the brown growth, and then that will encourage more stems like this brand new mint growth right here. Generally speaking, herbs love it when you cut them back. Something like this that looks a bit straggly, to me just looks like a good excuse for a cup of mint tea. I take off all the usable leaves and slash it right back down. It might look drastic, but it'll actually encourage the plant to put its energy into making new leaves for you to eat. Whatever herbs you want to grow, it's worth checking out their specific needs to make sure they're right for your space. And once you've started growing herbs, you might find that you're keen to grow more edibles. And you know what, you really can grow a lot of edibles in a small space. I've seen some fantastic roof gardens that are laden with produce, and even on my own little balcony, I grow tomatoes and courgettes and chilies. You do need some sunlight, but there are also lots of things you can grow in shadier spots too. If you want to get a head start, then check out the Patch website, where they've got kits with everything you need to grow a variety of vegetables, including chilies, tomatoes, squash, and more. Other than that, I'd just encourage you to give it a go, because nothing tastes sweeter than when you've picked it from your own urban garden. In the next lesson, we'll be taking things a step further, where I'll be teaching you how to grow from seed.